So instead of reviewing today's episode, I decided I'm going to be talking about the Pain Invasion arc, kind of give a little overview of it, and Naruto versus Pain, the final fight, talk about a little bit of controversial topics about this particular arc, some stuff that happened that people, there's a lot of controversy surrounding certain things that happened in this arc. One of the big things that people say about Naruto versus Pain to begin with, the final battle between the two, is that Naruto didn't actually defeat Pain. That he was, Pain defeated him, he was down on the ground, he had him pinned down, and it was actually the Kyuubi that came out and all that craziness that happened, and pretty much Naruto didn't defeat Pain. And to be honest with you, I think that in the end, Naruto not only defeated Pain, he defeated Nagato. And see, here's where it comes into play. Pretty much with Naruto, a lot of people say that in the 2-year time skip, he didn't really progress. He didn't get any new moves. What was the training with Jiraiya was basically worthless. People say that. And to me, I always think of his training with Jiraiya. Yeah, he advanced slightly as far as combat, but for me, I feel as though it was more of life lessons he got out of Jiraiya. He became who he is now, more confident, more wiser because of Jiraiya. And it was more so passing ideals. And I think if it wasn't for Jiraiya's training, he wouldn't have been able to defeat Nagato, because Jiraiya's ideals, that whole thing of one day coming to an understanding with everybody being able to come to an understanding, is what Naruto ultimately adopted from him and was able to defeat Nagato with, because in the end, it was Naruto's speech and his words, the wisdom that he obtained from Jiraiya to come to this conclusion that I don't want to kill you. As much as you've done everything, I don't want to keep repeating the same cycle over and over. And in order to break this cycle, as much as you've done all the horrible things, you destroyed my entire village, I gotta, man up and say, you know what, I'm not going to kill you. And I think that that's one of the most important things that Naruto got from Jiraiya's training. Screw anything else, maybe he learned to control his chakra more, whatever the case. I think the biggest thing he got from him is his ideals and becoming a wiser person. And the Pain Invasion arc really showed that particular thing. It was like, everything that happened, Hinata going down and everything, and he still was able to put it all aside and say, you know what, I can't do this. I have to man up and stop the cycle here and now. And that's where I feel as though Naruto did beat Nagato in the end, and it was due to Jiraiya's training. Now, as far as the whole thing goes with the Pains invading everything, I want to talk a little bit about Konohamaru coming in and using Rasengan and taking out one of the Pains. A lot of people are, they go crazy like, that shouldn't have happened. How was Konohamaru by himself able to do that? And to an extent, you can argue like that seemed a little bit cheesy, but at the end of the day, the Pain wasn't really destroyed. I think it was got back up and was rebuilt or something by the other Pains. But he did took out one of the Pains fairly easy. A simple Rasengan from, 12-year-old. How old is Konohamaru? Like 12 or something in the Pain Invasion arc. It was cool, and I liked the resolve that he showed, and ultimately showing that he gained something. He gained a technique that is a very big technique. The Rasengan is a very important technique. I feel as though it's a very big one. And for him to have gotten it, I wish we would have got a little more in the actual manga backstory showing him, teaching him it. Because Naruto had to go through hell to do the technique, because we know there's a lot of a process to get that technique to be able to master it. And I wish we would have got a little bit more backstory to that, because it was like a very defining moment for Konohamaru, showing that, he's matured and he wants to protect people as well. But overall, I enjoyed the moment. The backstory for it could have been a lot better, because it was just like, hey, he knows the Rasengan, and hey, he smashed him. But he did struggle, and it wasn't just like I'm gonna kick your ass, and then he did that. He actually had to struggle. He had him on the ropes. Konohamaru was like, backed up. I think he was like about to pull his tongue out of his mouth, and it was set up nicely. I think it was set up to where it wasn't 100% believable, but it kind of was. In the end, it made sense in a way, and it ultimately looked pretty freaking awesome. You can't deny that. As far as Hinata with her confession to Naruto, I think that was a very pivotal moment, as far as not only for the shippers' sake, the whole Naruto, Naruhina, Narusaku situation, but I think just overall as a character development for Hinata, being able to finally overcome her feelings for Naruto, be able to express them, even though it was in a dire situation. I think that was very pivotal, and the Pain arc definitely brought out the best in Hinata. It also showed the bond between the two of them, because after she was shot down by, Pain took her down, Naruto just completely lost it. I wish some of the stuff that occurred at that particular moment would have been carried on, because pretty much after Hinata's confession, we never get Naruto reciprocating to those feelings or anything like that. So that was something that, it was amazing in the moment, but it was never really carried on further. So in the Pain Invasion arc, it was good, but I wish it just would have been more of a valuable thing because it never really just went anywhere after that. But it was kind of hilarious where Sakura was like, Hinata, you love Naruto? And it kind of made her feel like, damn, I've been kind of giving him the cold shoulder this entire time, but now he has a pretty attractive woman, strong woman that wants him. And I think that somewhere along the lines sparked some jealousy in Sakura. Because a woman, a lot of times when you like a woman and she don't like you back, but then another woman likes you, all of a sudden that woman's going to like you. So that could have also sparked something along with Sakura saying, damn, maybe I do like Naruto, because that's just how women are. So again, the whole situation with Hinata, Sakura, Naruto, the little love triangle, even though there's not much of a love triangle, but you get what I mean. It was impactful at the time, and I just wish later on we would get more of that. But we do get some Naruhina situations later on, but I just would have loved to see, like, afterwards, Naruto say, hey, did you mean what you say? So that was just an interesting moment. And as far as just overall Tsunade not really getting to combat, I wish she would have got more into combat instead of healing, because I feel as though when they went into combat in the end, it was good that Naruto did it by himself, but at the same time it would have been more of a strategic way if it would have been like Naruto takes on one, Tsunade takes on one, Kakashi takes on one. And speaking of Kakashi, I want to talk about the death of Kakashi and what ultimately happened. That was a very big moment, and that was something where a lot of people, I'm sure, were like dropping the manga left and right because of Kakashi's death. Now, him reviving from that and living on from that was a pretty big, I guess you would say, trolling, or I guess a twist, so to speak, or whatever the case may be, because at the end of the day, it's like, he looked completely dead. It was very sad. Me, I was like, oh my god, going crazy. I couldn't freaking believe it. And it was very defining because it just showed more of the devastation of what Pain, his invasion, and all his ideals stood for, but then only for a lot of these deaths to later be negated. Shizune wasn't really a big death. She could have stayed dead, to be honest with you. I mean, she's a cool little character, side character, whatever, but it wasn't really relevant enough for, in my opinion anyway, to be brought back. It was like, whatever. It felt like a Dragon Ball moment for a minute at the end of the arc, with Pain bringing everyone back to life. As far as Kakashi's death, I think that in a way, for the time, it made sense. Like, no, you should have stayed dead. But in the grand scheme of things, as far as his connections with a later villain, his importance to the story and the relevance made it necessary for him to not die at that particular moment. It would have been a great way to end him, because it was just like everything felt perfect. It was sad, it was dramatic, it moved the story, it would have moved Naruto even more because now both of his senseis are dead. But in the grand scheme of things, it's more valuable for him to be alive, because stuff later on with Kakashi is ultimately, very valuable and very big and important to the story, the overall story. So Kakashi's death, should he have stayed dead? Yes, in a way. No, in a way, because of ultimately what happens later on with certain villains. So it's like a give and take with that situation. I think Kishimoto should have never killed him off to begin with in that moment, because it was such an amazing death. And I hate saying that because it sounds like I'm glorifying death, but it was done in such an amazing, artful way, an artistic way, sad way, and it really tugged on the heartstrings, only to later negate all of that by making him live. So if anything, maybe Kakashi should have been beaten to the pulp, but not killed and then brought back to life. I think that shouldn't have been done. Now, the final battle between Naruto and Pain, anime-wise, they did slip on one of the particular episodes. Everyone knows the greatest, my pain is greater than yours, where it kind of looks all cartoony and everything. They did slip. Manga-wise, I say that this fight, there's nothing wrong with it. The manga is absolutely perfect. This is one of the best fights in Naruto, manga-wise. Anime is just really one of those particular episodes where they really slip bad. You got literally the Kyuubi hitting him, and it looks like Tom and Jerry's like hitting Pain with like a cinder block or like a piece of wood, and he just keeps hitting him like a nail into the ground. So they, anime-wise, slipped very badly with one of these particular episodes. Now, the whole thing with Minato showing up, I feel as though it was good in a sense that, it moved things along, but it also begs the question, like, does Minato as a person, as a whole, leaving his chakra behind, does he, like, let's just say he was brought back from the death for all intents and purposes, and he was revived, would he remember having that conversation with Naruto, or would all that be moot because he wouldn't remember any of that because that was just his chakra? And as far as the whole thing with him telling him about the masked man, that was definitely a seed to plant for later arcs. It was a great moment, very defining moment. It kind of gave Naruto a heads up of what he really is and who he really is, and his father was the fourth Hokage. It gave him a little more confidence and gave him that final push to be able to defeat Pain. I think the way it was structured of how he defeated Pain was pretty awesome. It kind of had a little bit of that shonen feeling of like, I'm not gonna quit, but at the same time strategy as well, because there was that whole 5-second interval between Pain using his jutsu. So the final fight I think was amazing. Manga wise it was perfect. Anime wise they did slip here and there because of the animation. I don't know just what was going on at that time. Maybe they had not enough funds or whatever, but they did slip with the animation on one of the particular episodes especially. Overall, the Pain Invasion arc, very freaking awesome arc, very impactful, with a few hiccups here and there. The revival of a lot of the characters I felt as though shouldn't have been. If you want to revive Shizune or whatever, that's fine, because give or take, she can live or die. She's not important, but when you kill Kakashi in such an impactful way, and then bring him back, you should have just never killed him to begin with. Should have just let him live onward, and if you knew that he was important for the story. But at the same time, it was also to give redemption to Nagato, and to ultimately show that Nagato was kind of like in between of, you know, doing evil deeds to try to get a good outcome. So his death, Kakashi and many others, was kind of like important in order to give that redemption to Nagato in the end. So it was like a whole thing of like questioning whether or not this is good, because there was a reason for everything that happened, but a lot of those events that happened, it made you question, like, why did you do this to begin with? Love the Pain Invasion arc, Naruto vs. Pain, amazing fight. I prefer the manga over it. If you ask me whether you should watch the anime of that fight or read the manga, a lot of people always say, you know, anime, but for this particular event, I would definitely say read the manga, because the fight is amazing. Anime, some of it is really good. I will say some of it is good, but there are some very bad moments just because of animation. And so ending this one off, I want to ask you guys a question. Do you think it was Naruto that defeated Pain in the grand scheme of things, or was it the Kyuubi himself? For me personally, I think the ideals that Jiraiya taught him was what ultimately ended everything and allowed Naruto to win, but people will say that it was the raw power of the Kyuubi knocking Pain around and making Nagato have to use all these techniques and weakening him down in order to Naruto get the final blow with that Rasen Shuriken. What do you think? Did Naruto defeat Pain, or did the Kyuubi do it? Let me know in the comment section below. And your overall thoughts of the Pain Invasion arc and Naruto vs. Pain, because this is a very defining moment. A lot of people said this is the climax of the arcs of Naruto Shippuden. I disagree. I think that there are some awesome moments after that, but your overall thoughts of it. But that's all I have for this video. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Thumbs up for the Pain Invasion, because it was a freaking amazing arc. It made you cry, it made you worry, it made you tense, and all around it did its job, I feel. As always, people, have an awesome day.